Welcome, everyone. We're about to begin our tour through one of the most complex and, let's be honest, contested ideas in modern American history. If you'll gather around, we'll start right here with the main placard.
Now, the official definition on the wall here is pretty straightforward. It says affirmative action means positive steps taken to increase the representation of women and minorities in areas of employment, education, and culture from which they have been historically excluded. Seems simple enough, right? Almost. A little too simple.
Excuse me? But hang on a second. That can't be the whole story. I mean, if it's just about taking positive steps, then why has this been one of the most explosive issues in the country for, 50 years? What is everyone actually fighting about?
And an excellent question from our visitor. Yes. You see, the real controversy kicks in when those positive steps start to look like preferential selection based on race or gender. And the public debate on this, well, it didn't just happen all at once. It really came in three big waves. The first one, back in the 70s, was about jobs and schools. But since then, the second and third waves, they've been almost entirely about one thing: getting into college.
If you'll follow me this way, our first exhibit gets into the origins. While the term affirmative action was floating around for a bit, the real firestorm, the big controversy, that all started in the early 1970s.
Okay, now if you look closely at this document, you're seeing the exact moment things caught fire. In 1972, a government rule called Revised Order No. 4 landed on the desks of university presidents. It demanded goals and timetables to fix the, quote, underutilization of minorities. But here's the kicker, the really crucial change. It also added women to the list. Now, unlike many minority groups at the time, women were already earning PhDs in huge numbers. All of a sudden, this wasn't some abstract idea anymore. It was a policy that could completely upend how faculties were hired. And that's when the campus wars really began.
As we step into the next wing of the exhibit, you'll start to see that this fight wasn't just political. Oh no, it got intensely philosophical. Two big, competing ideas about what justice even means started to clash.
So, the first major justification was all about compensation. The thinking, put forward by philosophers like Judith Jarvis Thomson, was that giving preferential treatment was a form of redress. A way to make up for centuries of sexism and racism that had locked entire groups of people out of good jobs and schools. It was about paying back a debt.
But hold on, doesn't that just seem a little off? I mean, look at who this policy really helps and who it hurts. The people who benefit the most are these highly credentialed minorities and women, who you could argue are the ones least harmed by wrongs from, 100 years ago. And the people who bear the burden? Younger white guys, who are the ones least responsible for what happened in the past. So how exactly is that justice?
Yes, well, you've just put your finger on the central problem with the whole compensation theory. And that exact tension very quickly jumped from the philosophy classroom straight to the Supreme Court. So let's proceed to the main hall, because we have to talk about the landmark 1978 case, Regents of the University of California versus Bakke.
The case itself was pretty simple. The UC Davis Medical School basically set aside 16 of its 100 spots for minority applicants. Alan Bakke, a white applicant who got rejected, turned around and sued. In court, the school defended its program with four main arguments. They said it was to fix historical deficits, to counter discrimination in society, to get more doctors into poor communities, and to get the educational benefits of diversity.
So, this is the crucial part. The court's swing vote, Justice Lewis Powell, just methodically took their case apart. He tossed out the first argument, calling it discrimination for its own sake. He shot down the second, saying a university can't just try to fix all of society's problems. And for the third claim about helping underserved communities, he said, basically, show me the proof, and they couldn't.
So 3 of their 4 reasons just crumbled. But that fourth one, the idea that a diverse student body has unique educational benefits, that one actually held up. Powell decided that this was a compelling governmental interest, something protected under the big umbrella of academic freedom.
And what you see here is this brilliant, or maybe complicated compromise that ended up defining affirmative action for the next 45 years. See, Powell struck down the medical school's rigid quota, no more setting aside seats. But he created a whole new path forward. He said a university could consider race as a plus factor, just one of many things they look at, kind of like being a great athlete or a talented musician, all in the name of creating a vibrant, diverse campus.
And just like that, the age of diversity began. After that ruling, universities all over the country jumped on Powell's opinion, and they totally rebuilt their admissions policies around this new rationale.
And the claims that were made for diversity were, they were huge.
It was said to improve your cognitive abilities, make you a better problem solver, foster understanding between races, and get students ready for a global workforce. Diversity pretty much became the magic ingredient for a top-tier education.
Okay, wait a minute though. If all that stuff is true, if diversity is essential for your brain to grow and for complex thinking, then does that mean that the education you'd get at a historically black college or any school that doesn't have that perfect racial mix, is that education automatically worse? Are those students getting a degraded education?
That is the really uncomfortable question at the heart of it, isn't it? When you take that argument to its logical conclusion, it gets a little shaky. In fact, some people who supported it even admit it, that with a wink and a nod, everyone understands that diversity is really a proxy for integration. It was just a much more legally and socially acceptable word for the real goal, which was integrating America's most elite institutions.
Let's keep moving. By 2003, this whole diversity argument was back in front of the Supreme Court, this time in a case called Grutter versus Bollinger. And from that case, a totally new, much more pragmatic justification came out.
Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, who wrote the majority opinion, she introduced what we can call the legitimacy argument. The military had come to the court and argued that they needed a diverse officer corps for national security. O'Connor took that logic and ran with it. She said for our major institutions, the courts, Congress, big companies, to be seen as legitimate by all Americans, the path to leadership has to be visibly open to everybody. This wasn't an argument about making students smarter, it was about keeping the country stable.
And that brings us to the final room in our exhibit and the dramatic end of this 45-year-long story, the 2023 case, Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard.
In a decision that truly was a landmark, the Supreme Court ruled that the admissions programs at both Harvard and the University of North Carolina were unconstitutional. Chief Justice Roberts basically said that the goals of diversity were too fuzzy, the racial categories they used were messy and incoherent, and the whole practice just didn't have a logical endpoint. The era of Bakke and Grutter was officially over.
And that concludes our official tour. Thank you for your time. Please feel free to exit through the gift shop. Psst, hey, come back here for a second. The tour's over, but the story definitely isn't. Just between you and me, getting rid of race-conscious admissions didn't end the fight. Not at all. It just moved the battlefield.
Here's what the placard on the wall doesn't say. The fight now has shifted to these even bigger, more fundamental questions, like what about preferences for the children of alumni? Legacy admissions. What's the role of standardized tests like the SAT? And the biggest one of all, what does merit even mean? See, the end of affirmative action didn't really give us an answer. It just forced all of us to ask a much, much bigger question.